Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Sorensen, welcome to the Body's Compass. Today, I have a very interesting guest, Emma Lagerlow. Now, Emma, for the listeners, just so they can get a bit of a deeper sense of you and connection to who you are and how your background influences are what we're going to talk about today. Can you share an overview of what has shaped you as a woman and your journey through the corporate world into what you're doing today?
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. It's really an honor to be here on your show. That's a big question to get started on, isn't it? But I guess it's really been, it's been such a life journey for me. It goes back even to, childhood and how, being raised. I think I was the eldest of four, and that was shaped. I think that shapes a lot of who you are, the role that you play in your family and that type of thing. And then another big thing for me was traveling, and I always just had this, I guess, wanderlust. And I did a stint of backpacking when I was in my early 20s, and I feel like that really shaped who I was, just to give me a greater perspective about the world. And at that time, I think I started dipping my toe a little bit into the water of spirituality, and like I was reading The Secret and things like that, but I wasn't truly ready for my quest yet. And I got married, I had 4 kids, and that really got in the way of all of that. I also I had a deep love for writing and always wanted to write a book and wanted to be a journalist, but in a rush as well to get on with life and move out and do all the things. And so ended up in banking and finance and had a marketing degree, and ended up being a 25-year corporate career alongside, with my kids and raising them and being what society, deems you to be a good mum and a good wife and a good woman and all of those things. And then the pandemic happened, and that was when really I had the space to reflect on the things I really wanted to do. I mean, I would have moments where I'm like, I'm going to write that book, and then life would just get in the way again. And I feel like I was just living on autopilot. A great day was getting my chores done and, nothing really going wrong. And that was a chance to pause and think about the things that I really wanted to do with my life. And I knew I had that time, and I didn't know how long it would be. But I also, having a marketing degree, I thought, I can't just write a book. I need to, what am I going to write about? All of those things. So I thought I'd come up with a idea of starting a blog. And at that time it was, helping mums who are raising tweens and teens survive and navigate that period. And I think, again, it was really I was still masking in some ways, and it felt safe to even be talking about my role as a mother and that type of thing. And so it wasn't until I had got some business coaches and started exploring coaching that I just could see that there was another way of doing life. And once I had started on that path, and it was unstoppable. And so that was, I guess, nearly 5 years ago now that I started, and I've since studied life coaching, and I really brought in my banking and finance experience around wealth coaching and mindset coaching, just niching down into things that really interest me. And I'm now a sound healing facilitator and, podcast host myself, and coach clients. And it's been just an incredible journey for me, I guess. And all the steps along the way, I guess, have shaped who I am and probably allow me to be a good coach, even for, my favorite clients is probably midlife women that are in the same stage as me, because at this stage of life, we have, it's sort of this no man's land in some ways, where our kids are growing up. And so we have more freedom to be able to choose what we're going to do with our lives moving forward. And I see so many women that have poured so much of their time and energy and effort into their kids and their family, and all of a sudden their family's then going to start moving away. And I would love for them to have a little bit of an epiphany like I have. I mean, maybe it doesn't need to be in the same thing, but to choose themselves and give themselves a fulfilling life, I think is definitely my purpose and what I'm doing for myself, and what I'd love to help share with as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned it's through the COVID, because that was really a polarizing. It was a definite wake-up call for some, but it was also, I think, that period where it really, it was a make or break, I think, for a lot of people. And I saw it as a massive opportunity just to rest. And a lot of people I know were just grateful to be in lockdown and not able to go out and all that kind of stuff. But on the other spectrum of that, people who thrived in that environment, they couldn't go out. So they were, pent up in a box for God knows however long. But then the people in the box, again, for me, it stirred creativity. And I created a lot of online programs where a lot of people imploded. So that's the polarity I was kind of referring to. But it's interesting how people reacted to that.
Without a doubt, I definitely saw that as well. And yeah, for me, I did see it as a true gift at that time. As I said, teenagers, and even for that to be able to keep them safe and knowing they weren't going anywhere. But it was great for our family as well, just to, foster a deeper connection, because we were all sort of ships in the night running our own races, and it brought us closer together from that perspective. But I did see people that there was a lot of fear around that time, and if they had businesses that were in hospitality and things like that, then I think businesses, dance schools and all that type of thing, then they were really like, how long is this going to go for? And it was their livelihoods that were at risk. But I see so many of them that navigated it, and then thankfully the government was great with assisting people to be able to stay financially secure, just to keep the ship running along for them. And yeah, most people I know came out of it, but I think there was definitely polarizing of the people that couldn't stand it versus the ones that were just thriving in that moment of pause.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting relationships, dynamics going on. Emma, I see a lot of coaches out there today for everything you can possibly think of. Most don't really have the depth to help them sell beyond a few likes on social media. Now, as we spoke a little bit before, I've kind of known you for a few years through mutual friends and Truewoo, and I've heard many good things, which is why I wanted to get you on today. What inspired you to focus on your work, specifically within the mindset coaching?
Yeah, well, what I guess I have gleaned from, and firstly, thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it. And I say the same. It's been really lovely to see our connection, even at the gym, doing weights, over the years. And now we've sort of gone on a like-minded pathway to this mindset work. And for me, it was really just seeing how much emphasis there is on our physical health. And, I've always been great at staying fit physically. And I just felt like there wasn't a lot of emphasis on our minds. And the deeper and the more I learned about it, our minds really control everything. And our mindset is so important as a foundation to do whatever we're going to do, whether it is staying fit physically, but having that mental well-being is incredibly important. And I just don't think there's enough emphasis on that, or we do enough to nurture our minds.
Funny, because that wasn't even a thing 10 years ago, really, was it? Especially, well, in our area, for sure. But the mindset is, and there's so much, not dogma, there's so much, there's so many words around what the mind is that I'm actually yet to meet. There's very few psychologists or psychiatrists that actually can define what the mind is, but it's it's the mechanism that builds everything. The mind is the builder, and very few people have, I guess, I don't want to say the skills. That's more of an ability, because the skill you can learn, but the ability you're born with, tapping into that ability. But as a coach, what ratio of people's mindset could you contribute to things like poor diet and lifestyle choices compared to learnt thoughts and learnt behaviors?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, and I think it's like the chicken or the egg, isn't it? In some ways, it's that we need to feel well and the way we feel well is to move our bodies and to eat food that nurtures us. But we often don't eat well and do the movement and do all of those things if our mindset is not in the right place. And that's where, we do lean into symptoms and, practices that don't support us because maybe we're even numbing out by eating wrong foods or, not doing the exercise and things like that, or drinking too much alcohol, whatever it might be. It's often a symptom of a deeper underlying mindset around, what is our belief systems, our sense of self-worth, I think really plays into that. But often a lot of people are just wandering around and not even having any realization around that. As I said, I feel the same. I was on autopilot, and luckily for me, exercising and eating generally well has always been something that I've been drawn to. But for a lot of people, I think that it's not. And so it's foundational. I think exercise and nutrition is foundational, but if your mindset is not in a strong, positive place, then it's often the first thing that will fall away. What do you think?
Well, have you heard of psychoneuroimmunology as
No.
a thing? So in psychoneuroimmunology, it states that what you eat dictates how you think. So in other words, when we eat, we extract nutrition from the food. The food gets its nutrition from the soil. So if we eat nutrient depleted foods, then our capacity to digest food goes down. If our capacity to speak and digest food decreases, so does our capacity to think. Because anyone who's been really constipated before can tell you they have a cloudy or foggy mind or foggy, brain fog. So as your capacity to digest food goes down, your capacity to think goes down. As your capacity to think goes down, the capacity to create what you want goes down, and you end up in this negative feedback loop. And the next thing you go, you're physically tired, you're mentally tired, but then you go for the quick fix. You go for the coffee, or you go for the chips, or the sugar thing, or the drink, or whatever your medicine is. And then you just reinforce that loop. But very few people correlate mental health or mindset with nutrition. And I'm yet to meet I think this is my 18th year now. In that time, I'm yet to meet anyone with, a mental health or a mindset. When I say a mindset problem, their mindset really isn't in alignment with what they're wanting to do or what they're coming to me for. So I'll call that, for lack of a better word right now, a mindset problem. But they, after assessing every single one of their diets and their sleep cycles and their digestive habits, even their poo, I've never met one person with a deficiency in mindset that didn't have a deficiency in their diet.
Yeah.
So
very interesting. I mean, they say the gut is the second mind, or it's everything starts in the gut these days, and there's so much research going into that. And so it does make sense. So I guess you're right in saying that if we're going to eat and drink the wrong foods and not have, a healthy lifestyle, then it is going to affect our mindset. But then it is just this negative feedback loop of your mindset is negative and then you make poor choices, and it just continues on that path. So is that your first line of defense with your clients, to look at their diet and lifestyle choices?
Depends what they're coming to me for. Some people just wake up with a sore back or a headache or whatever it is, and they just want to lay on the table and get it sorted. But if they want to, I guess, get to the deeper stuff, then that's certainly a part of it. And I'd love to do that with every person, but some people just aren't interested in it, which I get, because I myself wasn't for a long time. But do you work with people in that regard?
I don't like do sort of massage or things like that, but I have studied muscle testing in a modality called Resolve, and that is that every physical symptom that we have or emotional symptom is related to a trauma that we have an unsupported meaning making around. So something's happened to us, and whether it's a teacher telling you drew a rainbow wrong or something like that, and so then it holds you back from being creative because you don't want to get criticized, and then you store that in your body and it comes out in a sore back or a sore knee or something like that, and until you resolve the unsupported meaning that you've made of it, it's going to continue. So I guess that's a little bit similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very similar. Just to build on that, it's a lot of not only lower back pain, but also diseases like autoimmune disease. And I was working with a girl, I've lost complete track of time, last week or this week, who had rheumatoid arthritis, which is technically an autoimmune disease. And after some investigating, turned out that her parents divorced when she was 5. But somehow there's something in the child's psyche that they take it as their fault. The divorce happened because of them. So then they have to put up a shield between themselves and everyone else because they think either anyone else that I love isn't going to love me or I'm going to hurt them. And so they attack themselves. And that shows up as autoimmune. So it can it can show up as, pick your poison.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's that our body's in fight or flight or fighting this tiger in, her parents splitting up and, she caused that. And so then your body's not operating in homeostasis, which allows other symptoms to creep in, which can be autoimmune disease, other diseases. And so it's trying to get us into that state of homeostasis so that we can, just operate in harmony and I guess be able to be as strong as possible so that none of these things can get in and derail us.
Yeah, it's certainly the healthier, more vitality you have, the more capacity to buffer all that stuff because as you were saying, I tell parents the lions and tigers and bears of life that are inevitably going to chase us at some point. But it's the health, the 1% things you do every day, the nutrition, the sleep, the hydration, etc., all of that stuff, that's the 1% that's going to create the buffer for you to be able to handle the lions and tigers and bears because we all incarnated and took on a body and that's life. That's what we took on. So we've got to be able to, there's always something in the environment that's trying to kill us, or make us sick or take us down, but we can't eradicate everything from the environment. So we have to be strong enough to share the environment with all the things and find a way to be symbiotic with that. So Emma, I see many patients who come to me in pain and not realizing their pain is trying to tell them something. And their mindset is often victim-like mentality, using their pain as leverage or a power play, or interpreting something like the law of attraction, which is very popular for a time, as I'll just be positive, but I'll also sit back and do absolutely nothing and everything will just come to me because I just trust. What are your thoughts in that regard?
I think it goes back to what we were really talking about previously around we need to be aware, I think, of those, what is actually underlying some of those symptoms. And really it comes back to what are those lions, tigers and bears that we might be fighting against and knowing what they are so that they bring them into our consciousness, I guess. And then we are better able to have that barrier against those symptoms, or, they sometimes just disappear. I know I was reading on your website, there's testimonials where someone came with a sore knee and it worked out that there was a trauma that they hadn't processed. And once they did, the knee just was better. And equally, the law of attraction, I think, is, I was talking about The Secret earlier where, we just think it's going to happen and bring it into place. But if I've learned a lot about that, feeling worthy of the things that we desire as well is really important. And so again, we've got to really know who we are, and authenticity, I think, is also super important, because often, we might want that car because, one of our best friends has got that car or whatever it might be, but do we actually want that car? And I think that that's really important too. So a lot of my work is helping my clients understand who they really are, from what are those limiting beliefs maybe that are holding them back, and then what are their values and that type of thing, so that they know who they authentically are. And then you can better know what you truly want and go and get it. And then I think you're going to have a lot more chance of being able to achieve the things that you authentically want, rather than, what society tells you should want and all that type of thing. So yeah, it's more about really getting to the core of who people are, and then I guess also understanding the things that have happened to them that may be holding them back in life, and what they've made that mean about themselves.
Do you find a lot of people get, let's say they lose themselves in a relationship they're in?
Yeah, definitely. I do find that a lot. And I think that again comes back to sort of a little bit of the social programming of, the roles that we play in life, and, what it means to be a good mum, like supporting your kids, what it means to be a good wife or partner or whatever it might be. Even to be a woman, like nurturing, and the mental load particularly as well that we, I think, carry around with us. I think all of those things, but definitely I think people can use, the partner to guide them and lead the way. And is that really who they are authentically themselves?
I didn't write this as a question, but it just came to me regarding rites of passage. Now, according to psychological research, I think it was 70 or 72% of the world is stuck in the child archetype, while 90% of adults don't graduate past, when I say graduate, past psychologically, emotionally graduate who they were past ages of 12. So really 10% of people who you know and interact with are actually adults. The rest are unconscious children just living in an adult body. What are your thoughts around, I guess, the Western adults in the Western culture going through a rite of passage? Not necessarily physically, because a lot of women, when they get their first period, will consider that a rite of passage. Or I know for a lot of young men, breaking a bone for some reason is a rite of passage. But that happened to me when I was 10. So it doesn't have to make logical sense, but just the meaning behind what a rite of passage is, and what you see with your clients, how does that fit in, I guess, to the psychology of people who you work with?
Yeah, well, I think people are just acting out their beliefs around, situations that have happened to them. And, we form the formative years at 0 to 7. And I think a lot of us are still stuck in that cycle of the things that happened, like witnessing, and even the way our parents were in their relationships, the things, that was said about money and that type of thing. And so it's just unconsciously we inherit these ways of being. And if we form limiting beliefs around that, then we get stuck, I guess, in that cycle. And then they often say, our reactivity is that inner child still reacting in the same way as they did when they were a toddler or 0 to 7 or whatever it might be. And so I think until we even know, we get triggered, and I used to get triggered and be like, that person, how dare they say that to me, and all of that. And that's generally my initial reaction is like offense or whatever it might be. But I've created enough that I can then take a breath and think, why am I reacting like this? Like, there is a deeper meaning for that. And often it does go back to something that's happened in my childhood that has made me, feel that way. And so it's the inner child that is still reacting. And I think that a lot of that, when we are in that sort of conflict situations or whatever it is, it's more that child that's reacting. And yeah, as much as we have grown into fully fledged adults and taking on all those responsibilities, I think we often go back to, our childlike behaviours when we are triggered, or when things happen. Even the way we are, like I do a lot of coaching around, wealth mindset as well. And, our money mindset is so deeply ingrained in, watching our primary caregivers and the way they behaved around money. And until we shine a light on it, it just is unconsciously happening.
Do you find a lot of people, because it's unconscious, so we don't see it, I guess. Sorry, no, it's not that we don't see it, but we don't recognize it. We don't, some people call it the shadow, but the unconscious is just the unknown. But we associate the unknown with something scary because we're conditioned to fear what's not known, which there's a lot more unknown than there is known. That's a different podcast episode. Have you heard of the book It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wallin?
I have heard of it. I haven't read it, though.
That's phenomenal. I heard him on a few podcasts, and he's basically saying a lot of kids, and it ties into Carl Jung's quote about all children inherit the unmet lives of the parents. And Mark Wallin goes to show the research behind how kids inherit generational trauma. Initially, it was 14 generations back, and now I think they've shown it goes a lot further than that. But so essentially, the trauma that you may have isn't necessarily yours per se, but you've learnt it from whoever in the family tree back, that you've incarnated with the task of carrying the torch, I guess.
Yeah, I have read a book by a fellow author, and it was, I can't remember the name of it now, but it really talked about that. And I can see that, if there's been deep loss or things like that, then the sadness that, even your parents can carry, even if you weren't born, or you might have even been, I know in this story, it was about that a baby was given away and then she was like the replacement baby, and then the deep grief that her parents felt really just was a shadow on her life, but impacted a lot of the way, just unconsciously about never bringing it up and things like that. But she knew that there was something there. So I can see definitely, and without a doubt, it would go back if there was, starvation or things like that. I can imagine that there would be, and that might even lend itself even to that scarcity mindset that a lot of us have around money, even if that's just the way we were raised, that there wasn't enough. And so you would hoard to make sure, just in case, and that type of thing. And it just gets passed down generation after generation after generation. And you're not even truly aware that that's how you feel.
It's also, I think a lot of it is monkey see, monkey do. And I know growing up as a child, I saw my parents come home from work exhausted. Dad was an accountant, my stepmom, she worked as a medical receptionist for 1,000 years. And I saw them come home miserable, not necessarily miserable, but just exhausted. And that was my perception of adulthood. But also Dad being the accountant, counted every cent that everyone had. And if you spent more than, I think it was $100 on anything, it's almost like you had to pass his test to see if it was sort of worth it. And it probably took me maybe till I was late 20s, early 30s to break out of that and not need his approval to spend my own money, which is really weird to say out loud, but it's a thing.
Yeah, no, it is a thing without a doubt. I know my parents worked hard, and so I always thought you had to really work hard to earn money, and it was, slowly wins the race. But people used to say to me, Emma, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say rich. And my parents were mortified. Absolutely. My mum still is a little bit mortified. Like, she says, I can't believe you used to say that. And I'm like, what is wrong with that? even then I did a little bit think that, but then I guess there was a part of me that was like, oh, that's obviously not nice for me to say that. So I probably didn't say it as much because I didn't want to be, I thought, oh, is it greed? Am I being like a greedy person or something like that? But yeah, it's just interesting how, that they imprint on you.
Yeah, I mean, rich can have many meanings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, now I've written so much about it, so obviously it did impact me because now it's about what is true wealth. And when I was saying rich, I mean, I guess at the time I just wanted to have freedom to be able to just do what I wanted to do. I always knew that. That's even probably going back to traveling when I was 21, and I just wanted to. And I knew that money, I guess, was a way to do that. But then I've since learned that true wealth is not just money. It's definitely having great relationships in your life and a strong sense of self-worth and well-being, and time freedom is probably the most important part of feeling truly rich and wealthy.
that just reminded me of a guy I used to back in the Woolaware Fitness First days, which was whatever year that was now. And I was training a client who I think he had, I don't know how much money or what he was worth, but he had 2 planes, as you do. So he was doing all right financially. And I think I was whinging one day about bills and rent and, whatever. I was in a whingy mood that day. And here I am complaining about money to a millionaire or a multi-millionaire. And I'll never forget, he looked me dead in the eye and just said, if you can't handle being poor, you won't handle being rich. And that was just like a bullet.
Yeah, well, they often say that you become more of who you are and the more money you have. And I don't think I'm financially rich, just to qualify, but I do feel truly rich in life from just creating. And I think a lot of it is having like a good sense of purpose as well now and finding my path. But I don't think money would change that now. And I think even if I had heaps of money, then I would be doing exactly what I'm doing now. So I think it's good. I'm on a good trajectory. But it is interesting.
Emma, there's been quite a collective mentality shift since COVID and the lockdowns, with many people ending relationships and losing jobs and finding out who's on their vibrational channel, I guess you could say. What are some things that you've noticed with working with clients in that time, and how would you potentially advise people to set up for the next thing?
Yeah, so I have noticed, I think it just gave people a chance to, I guess, really stop and pause and look at their lives. And so there is a lot more people that are wanting to choose a different way of working and doing life. But I think it really comes back to having a good sense of self-leadership, really, is hopefully the next big thing. And, maybe I'm being overly optimistic and wanting that for people, but by knowing who you truly are, then I think there would be a lot more harmony just within yourself, but then in the world as well. And there's a lot of talk about, the rising of a new consciousness, and I'm seeing it for myself, and I guess the people that I'm now, networking with and that type of thing. And I really hope there is a rise in people wanting to be more conscious and not living so much on autopilot. And it really starts with, knowing who you are. And once you do, then you can lead from a place of just greater authenticity. And then there will be less, I think just less friction and less comparison and all of those things. And so I hope by helping people to find their core again, that it's going to have a ripple effect, that all the work that we're doing, the work that you're doing. I know, when you said back in those days, I think, my daughter was 2, so that she's 17 now. So that's like 15 years ago. And it's a very different time.
I think I remember seeing her. I might even, would I have seen you pregnant back in the day?
Yeah, well, I was definitely, I was attending the gym before that, but then, I used to troop up there with my 4 kids and put them into the crèche, and just so I could get a little bit of something for myself. And so I'm glad I've always done that. And I think, again, that's what we're seeing is that, particularly for women, I think that self-care isn't selfish. And by filling up our own cups, then we are better able to be there for all the people in our world. And, you know, I want to see that for men too. I mean, I know my husband, he's probably getting it through osmosis from me. And I know when he listened to my book, and he's not really a reader, but he listened to it, and it's really had a big impact on him. And I think for men as well, because they come out as though they have to be the breadwinners still and all of those things. But then to reflect on, is that actually making them happy? You know, it's even that hunter-gatherer scenario, right? And they're out there hunting and doing all of that. But is that what is really making them happy as well? And so I think hopefully it's just giving people a chance to pause and work out what it is for them that's going to make them give their life meaning and make them feel greater fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we only got one life. We want to get to the end and look back and have done the things that authentically we, you know, are going to fulfill us.
Yeah, I found a lot of people in COVID, they always have the opportunity to find out who you really are. But also, especially with the whole vaccine thing, a lot of people found out who their residency friends were. So a lot of people I know, I guess, form new friendship groups and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, for better or worse, that's kind of what it was. But I think COVID and the whole lockdown thing was a big collective rite of passage. And I think the way things are going, it's probably going to keep going on for the next 10, 20 years, you could argue.
Yeah, I agree in that it was like divisive in some ways around even people that wanted to be vaccinated and not, and then people's opinions around that. And there was even, I felt like a sort of a witch hunt a little bit at times around all of that, which I guess being a fence sitter, I could see people wanted life to get back to normal and their livelihoods to return. And those people that were holding back may have been, delaying that from happening. But then now we've seen even, you know, some of the ramifications of even having, you know, the injection and things like that, and maybe there was more merit to, you know, they had looked into it more deeply than all the rest of us potentially. So, but without a doubt, I think there is that more, I guess, a little bit more conspiracy theorists and that type of thing around so many other. It's like you sort of dip your toe in the water, and it's a minefield out there of what may be happening. So
yeah, I could go on a long dialogue about that. That could be next episode.
Yeah, sounds like we've got a few episodes we could record.
Emma, what is the mechanism behind attracting what you want?
Yeah, so I've really been doing a bit of exploration into manifesting and that type of thing. And I mean, it feels like so magical that we can just manifest it and bring it into life. But what I've really found, and I've recently joined a group called To Be Magnetic, and it really speaks to me because it's about having a strong sense of self-worth. And that is really, I guess, beginning with knowing who you are, but then also maybe shedding some of those limiting beliefs that we're talking about. And I think until we feel truly worthy of the things we desire, then we're probably not going to magnetize them or manifest them or whatever it might be into our lives, because there will be blocks that will stop us, I think, from doing that. We'll either get in our own way by feeling maybe not deserving, or we will, sabotage it because it's actually not what we authentically even want. And so, you know, we're going after things, or we might even go after these things and get them, and then we realize that they're not what we wanted as well. So I think having that really strong sense of who we are and our sense of self-worth is so important to be able to get what we want in life. Of course, then, you know, we know so much about taking aligned action. So we can't just think, you know, I feel worthy and I want that. We actually have to take the steps to get to it as well. It's not just going to happen on its own. And then I feel like there is a lot of merit to that visualization and that type of thing as well, where I've read a lot of and watched a lot of Joe Dispenza's work about how if we can really put ourselves into the scenario of the life or the thing that we want, and we involve our senses and we imagine it so well that our body and our mind actually doesn't know the difference, and it does then as well magnetize us towards getting the things that we want. And it really intrigues me that we can almost trick ourselves into thinking that we have it already, and yet then that propels us closer to getting the things that we want. So I think there's definitely a few different ways we need to be operating to get to what we want. And that's, knowing what we want truly, authentically, by having a strong sense of self-worth, getting rid of those limiting beliefs that are holding us back. Or not even, I don't think we can get rid of them. I think being aware of them so that when they come up, we can see them and say, oh, hello, there you are, my old friend. I know you're here just to protect me or whatever it might be, but I'm good. I've got this and I want this. And then taking the steps towards the things that you want. And then that visualization can really help. I mean, they talk about even in sport that, you want to take the basketball shot. And so you imagine taking that shot, getting that shot. And apparently it really supports you to be better at it. Golfing, like there's so many of our, really great sports people that use visualization, and it really helps you to get closer to the things that you want in life.
Yeah, it's funny you were saying that it's hard to find what you want without knowing who you are. Because finding what you want, as you were saying before, how do you know it's yours that you want? And then you can kind of climb the corporate ladder, realizing at one point you've hit the top of the ladder, but realizing you're on the wrong ladder.
Yeah.
And I know there was a guy in prison actually talking about golf, where while he was in his cell, he pictured playing his favorite golf course every day. But just visualized each shot, each hole, each club, just went through the entire process every day. I think he was in prison for 7 years, I think. And then when he was out, the first thing he did was went to play golf, and he took like 10 points off his handicap.
Yeah.
Just from that alone. But the attracting what you want is first you have to think about it. That feeling ideally would have to feel good. And then any thought is a mechanism by which you tune your consciousness into something. And then the more we focus on that thing, then that becomes magnetized. It creates energy, and you attract things to it. But also, as you attract things to it, you attract people, places, and things into that experience, because you're tuned into that specific frequency, whether you actually want it or not. Hopefully it is just something that you want.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many people have you met? I've met many that just thought, oh, I just trust that the universe will bring me money, and they just sit down watching TV all day, not really realizing that the universe works on a 1-to-1 ratio. For every step you take towards your goal, the universe is going to bring it to you.
Yeah.
You take 10 steps, it's going to bring it 10 steps closer. So you can want it all your life, but you still got to action. And that's where you can have the desire, but you're still going to have the will to walk behind your own words, really.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've had not lots, but I've had some clients that you can see you're going to fix it for them. And you can tell pretty quickly if they don't have that growth mindset. I mean, you would probably come across that even more so than me, because they're coming to you for their physical, ailments, and they just lie on the bed and they're like, massage it out, and they're not going to go take the steps, and they'll be back probably in, a couple of months, 6 months, something like that. And the same thing will be there, and, I'll pull my muscle and can you fix it?
Yeah.
And so it's having that
to do with your leg.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, it's also having a growth mindset over a fixed mindset that supports you to attract.
Also just taking responsibility, coming to the realization that if your knee or back hurts, for example, there's something you've been doing in your day-to-day life that's created, be it a compensation or an overload, or sometimes you get a psychosomatic response where we hold the psychological theme in a specific joint or joints or a posture, which then creates a myriad of other things potentially as well. But just owning that in itself for a lot of people. Emma, I know you've got some online courses, and I know you do some workshops and a host of other things. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so same as you do, I think a little bit during COVID that I really got into the online space because there was no other space. And so I do have a few courses on there. There's one called Wealth Mastery that I really love. Really, it's just 4 modules, and it walks you through understanding what your money mindset is. And so then, I think you can then be more present as well with your finances, and budgeting is, I think, something that, as well, that can support you. And then having some sort of financial literacy is really important as well. And so it sort of walks you through those. And then what happens when all those that comes together and you have more freedom over your life once, you've got a good financial base. So I really love that program. I've got another one called Become the Butterfly, which is a one-to-one program. And that walks you through, my life coaching, where we start with uncovering, your belief systems, your limiting beliefs, what your values are, and then really start moving into sort of understanding what your overall life purpose is. And I think a lot of the time we think our purpose is our career or our job or something like that, but I like to think it as how we want to be sort of remembered at the end of our life, and the impact that we want to have had on those around us and ourselves, to have lived, the best life we possibly can. And then we set some goals. So you go forth and hopefully, living a much better version of yourself than you began with. And I've got my book, Worthy and Wealthy, which is really, it's been great, actually. I didn't mention, I think, at the start, but I did finally write that book. And so I published that about 12 months ago, and it really helped me solidify how I coach and the process I take you through. And there is a part on finances in that as well, which I think is integral to being able to do all the other pillars, which is having a strong sense of self-worth and a sense of purpose, and feeling well, and having the time and freedom to be able to do all the things that we want in life. So that's a great way to dip your toe in the water if you like what you've heard and you're intrigued. Yeah, and then I do run some workshops at True Woo, which I love seeing you up there, Matt, practicing always, a friendly face. And so I'm a sound healing facilitator now, which is just something that came really out of the blue for me. I was doing some sunrise meditation down at Cronulla Beach, and just attending, and then who was leading it asked me if I wanted to lead with her, and then she had some sound bowls, and I was like, I don't want to rock up without the bowls, and everyone's like, it's Emma's turn and she doesn't have the bowls, and that has just taken on a life of its own for me. And I'm really talk a lot about self-care, and I think sound healing is a great form of self-care, because we often are not just, we hop into bed and we just pray for sleep, whereas you come to a sound healing and you really just allowing yourself to lie there and just be, and let the vibrations harmonize you. And so I think it's a beautiful form of self-care. And so do that. I'm about to run a manifestation and alignment sort of workshop, which brings in my sound, and then working out what you really want as we close out the year, and then we start a new year. And so I would love to even do a bit more of that. So bringing my coaching in, and a bit of journaling and mindset along with that sound healing to, I guess, integrate and allow yourself just to have a really nourishing experience. So, and I've got a podcast too called It's a Mindset. So love talking to people about their mindset, and hopefully switching on a few light bulbs in my listeners to put a little bit more emphasis on mindset as well. So yeah, there's some of the ways I guess you can find me if you're intrigued. But yeah, no, thanks, Matt.
Well, awesome. It's been an awesome chat, and yeah, we had a few tech problems at the start and in the middle, but that's part of the part. That's when you pray for rain, you've got to put up with the mud too. So it is what it is. But thanks for hanging in there with me, Emma. Feel free to share any final comments or where people can find you and learn more if they want to explore working with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. And yeah, look, tech problems just go with the territory, really, don't they? But it's really about the conversation more than anything. And I really love having these thought-provoking and deep conversations about life. And So I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and chat with you. You can find me, I'm probably most active on not LinkedIn, on Instagram. And that's at Emma Lagerlow. And I often, it's a bit of a mouthful, the old Lagerlow. So it's lager like the beer and low, how you feel when you have a bit too much. Yeah. So last messages, I guess it's really just, if you can take a moment just to pause and just reflect, like, who are you really underneath all those layers and everything? And are you doing, the things in life that will light you up? And, if you're coming up wanting a little bit, then yeah, maybe just have a think about that, about the things that are important to you, how you want to be remembered in this life. And are you taking the steps now to do that? But yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed this chat and yeah, appreciate it.
You are most welcome. And I'm pretty sure I will see you around very, very soon.
Can't wait. Thanks, Matt.
You've been listening to the Bodies Compass podcast with Matt Sorensen and today's guest, Emma Lagerlow. Check out her Instagram page at Emma Lagerlow. Also her website, www.emmalagerlow.com. If you liked this week's episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and a warm review. Please share this episode with someone you think it might help. If you want to find out more, give us a follow on Instagram at @thebodiescompass or swing by healhub.net. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.